You are never alone. Real horror stories that will keep you up at night. Have you ever had the feeling that someone is watching you, even when you're alone? Have you ever felt a chill run down your spine after hearing an unexplainable sound in the dead of night? Fear is a primal instinct, a silent warning that something isn't right. And sometimes ignoring it can be a fatal mistake. The stories you are about to hear aren't just eerie tales. They are real accounts from people who lived through pure terror, a strange figure on the roadside, an unseen presence tapping on a window, a taxi driver with sinister intentions. Small details that turned ordinary nights into endless nightmares. The worst part, the danger didn't come with loud screams or sudden attacks. It revealed itself in whispers, in lingering glances, in moments when the mind insisted, it's just your imagination. But was it really? When fear becomes real, there's no turning back. Get ready to step into the darkest corners of reality. After hearing these stories, you will never look at the darkness the same way again. But be warned, once you listen to these accounts, you can never unhear them. And who knows, when you turn off your lights tonight, something might be watching you too. A nightmarish encounter on a dark road. The empty road stretched like a tunnel of shadows, swallowing the car as it moved forward. The man scanned his surroundings, his headlights illuminating only the thick fog and twisted vegetation. It was New Year's Eve, but out there time seemed frozen. And then he saw her. A woman in a white gown, motionless at the side of the road, her eyes lost in the darkness. A shiver crawled down his spine, but he looked away and pressed the gas, trying to erase that haunting image from his mind. The party at his friend's house should have been enough to shake off that uneasy feeling. Between laughter and toasts, the image of the woman began to fade. But when he returned to his car, dread took over. All four tires were shredded, as if invisible claws had torn through them. No cell service, no escape. He had no choice but to walk to the main road. The night was silent, until a voice slithered out of the darkness. "I see you." Terror exploded in his chest. His eyes darted around, searching for the source of the voice, but the night revealed nothing. The cold air wrapped around him like a grip of icy fingers. Then, footsteps, rapid, closing in. He didn't wait. He ran, lungs burning, every fiber of his being screaming that he was being hunted. But each time he looked back, there was nothing, only pulsing shadows. His friend's house came into view, a fragile beacon of safety. He slammed into the door, shouting for help. Finally inside, he tried to steady his breathing. But something felt wrong. The air was thick, charged with an invisible weight, and then, in the window's reflection, he saw her, the woman in white, standing at the edge of the yard, unmoving, still watching. Fear was now alive in the room. The lights flickered, the air grew heavier. He wanted to believe it was all in his head, but something deep inside whispered the truth. She had followed him, and she wasn't leaving anytime soon. An uninvited guest at the window. Exhaustion weighed on him, but sleep refused to come. He could still feel her presence. That figure, standing in the yard, staring. When he finally drifted off, a sharp, deliberate sound snapped him awake. Tap, tap, tap. His heart stopped. The clock glowed in the darkness, 3:14 a.m. And then came the voice, low, drawn out, barely above a whisper. "I see you." Fear coiled in his chest like a parasite, draining his breath, his reason. He held his breath, eyes locked on the window. The curtains swayed slightly, as if something or someone was waiting for him to move. But he didn't. Time stretched, his heartbeat the only sound in the room. When silence finally returned, he barely dared to believe it was over. At dawn, he gathered the courage to look outside. And that's when he saw what she had left behind. On the ground, a rusty knife, its blade stained with something dark. Blood? He reached for it, but an icy dread stopped him. The police were called, and fear rippled through the household. They followed tracks leading to an abandoned shack in the woods. Inside they found something worse: mutilated animal carcasses arranged like offerings. A veteran officer sighed heavily. "Not the first time we've heard stories like this," he muttered. But when pressed, he refused to say more, as if speaking it aloud would summon whatever lurked in the shadows. The protagonist knew it wasn't over, because even when he closed his eyes, he still heard her, whispering, call, and that night, at exactly 3:14 a.m., he would hear it again. A suspicious taxi ride. The night was cold and silent when she stepped into the taxi. The driver, a pale man with sunken eyes, threw her a strange look through the rearview mirror. "Dangerous night to be alone, huh?" he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. A shudder ran down her spine, but she forced herself to stay calm. She just needed to get home. But as the car rolled forward, something felt off. She knew this route, every turn, every exit. So why were they going the wrong way? "You missed my exit," she said, voice steady but tense. The driver ignored her. Sweat gathered on her palms, her heartbeat quickened. "Sir, my exit was back there," she insisted, her voice shaking now. Finally he responded, his tone dry, calculated. "Relax, it's a shortcut." But the road ahead only grew darker, emptier. Panic set in. Every cell in her body screamed, "Run!" But how? Then, a moment, her only chance, a red traffic light up ahead. Without hesitation, she threw open the door and jumped. The impact bruised her, but she scrambled to her feet, sprinting toward a nearby police officer. Gasping, she tried to explain, but when they turned back to look for the taxi, it was gone, like it had never been there at all. Later, she realized something chilling. The taxi fare had frozen at exactly $30, as if the price had been decided before she ever stepped into that car, as if she had been just another marked passenger, another victim who wasn't supposed to escape. Insights based on numbers. The clock read 3:14 a.m. when everything began, a time without explanation. A moment when reality seemed to bend upon itself. Why that time specifically? Was it coincidence or a dark pattern repeating itself? The protagonist felt it wasn't just a random event. The creeping fear in his mind that night seemed to have been summoned by something greater, something that had patiently waited in the darkness. 4 shredded tires, completely destroyed. Not one, not two, but all of them. This wasn't an accident. Someone or something wanted to stop his escape. The suspense surrounding this was suffocating. Who could have done this? The woman on the road? An invisible entity manipulating his fate? The terror of being trapped there, with no phone, no help, only deepened. It was as if he were condemned before he even realized the game had begun. The taxi fare showed exactly $30. An innocent number, right? But she knew it wasn't. The price didn't rise with time or distance. It was fixed, as though the fare had already been decided before she even got into the car. Did the driver know she would try to escape? Was she just another in a long list of victims? Fear mixed with doubt. What would have happened if she hadn't jumped in time? 2 red lights. 2 chances to escape. The first light ignored due to shock, the second her last chance. These seemingly trivial moments determined whether she would live or die. Sometimes, fate is measured in seconds. The terror of not knowing if the next light would turn red before she could react made her heart race faster. What if fate didn't give her a third chance? Numbers tell stories, but what if these numbers weren't just coincidence? What if they were a code? A message left for those who survived. 314.4. Shredded tires, $30. 2 red lights. Each one a piece of a dark puzzle that no one wanted to put together. But now it was too late. They were already inside the game. And Like any game, there would be two outcomes: escape or vanish. Fear is a warning, a primal instinct telling us something is wrong. The stories you've heard today prove that horror doesn't come with loud screams. It lurks in whispers, in glances, in silence. How many times have you felt a chill and ignored it? How often have you convinced yourself that it was just your imagination? Maybe it was. Or maybe, like in these stories, something really was there, watching, waiting. If these stories made you second-guess that eerie feeling, then you've learned something valuable. Fear isn't the enemy. It's the guide. The only question is, will you listen to it next time? For more chilling stories, subscribe and turn on notifications. But be warned, once you step into the world of the unknown, there's no turning back.